are you guys focused on only oil and gas and other, I mean, I know you had previous experience in nuclear over in Germany, but are you guys focusing on oil and gas? Because I'm sure that this technology could be applied, in all different types of industries and scenarios. So what is y'all's strategy right now?
Yeah, so definitely heavy on the oil and gas space, but really commodity agnostic. So we do a lot of work in the underground mining space, surface mining space. We have some FPSOs going in Singapore and Asia Pacific right now. So we are Zone 0 and Zone 1 certified, which gives us that offshore capability. So POB tracking or people on board tracking, man overboard stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely focus on the mining game as a stretch goal here for next year, but I'm seeing a very large shift in the smart manufacturing space. Some of those large players are really focused on more, rather than just production loading, using this geospatial intelligence to be able to drive operational efficiencies right through their supply chain as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I want to kind of talk about the mining aspect a little bit more, because I don't think we've ever had anyone on the show that's kind of focused on the mining sector. And to be honest, I don't know a ton about mining. And it's just interesting. I talked to a founder today from Silicon Valley, and he has it's a software that kind of deals with wearables, something, similar. It doesn't do the same thing as this technology, but in the same type of bucket. And he was asking, kind of what's the sentiment around oil and gas and mining in particular. And I would say if you talk to the majority of founders out in Silicon Valley and you told them, yeah, I'm building a product that's going to be deployed out into the mining industry, they'd be like, why the fuck are you going into the mining industry? It's a dying industry, right? And so talk about that a little bit. How is the mining industry adopting technology? Are they looking for new technological solutions? And, as a founder that's providing a product to that, how do you get people excited? How do you get investors excited about that? Because you have to overcome that barrier where it's like, oh yeah, we're looking to deploy technology into oil and gas and mining. It's like, who the hell wants to, be involved in those two industries when they're constantly attacked? So talk about everything that I just covered. I know it was a lot.
Really. So the mining space is really interesting. One, lived it, used to work for P&H Mine Pro, Joy Global, and Komatsu. Tiered up. The thing that I really like about the mining game is that depending on how you structure your technology, whether it's asset-based or commodity-based, you've got a really good opportunity. And the adoption, I find, is a lot stronger in the mining game than in oil and gas. The oil and gas piece, because it's all fixed infrastructure, all based on asset and hierarchies, is that in the mining piece, it's all about life cycle management. So I'm running benchmark hours on all my equipment, regardless of whether that thing is digging, running, or walking. I need to change that component. So everything has an hour count on it. So when I look at the mining assets, if you have technology, productivity technology, payload technology, and even so a good example, swing time on shovels. Right now for a P&H 4100 Boss, I can do swing time for 32 seconds, bench to bucket, right? So being able to shave 2 seconds off of that cycle time is going to put another 400 tons a day in the bucket. When I look at that metric, those couple percentages, so the yield is much higher in the mining game, I feel, which drives adoption. And because it is so asset-based with that life cycle management flavor, if I'm approaching it, it's much easier to get pilots in the mining game because I can pilot one vehicle or I can pilot one solution in one train, rather than if I'm piloting something at the refinery, it's refinery wide or it's train wide or production facility wide. So in piloting and adoption, I find the mining game a lot easier. We've definitely identified it, especially in the underground space, because a lot of dangers underground, also very heavily regulated. So being able to have a safety technology that addresses not only regulation from emergency response and safety, also has that productivity flavor, we find it a really easy market to approach.
I was just reminded of this random story, but did you ever hear that story? I think it happened in the 80s in Louisiana, where they were drilling that well off the shelf, and so they're out on this barge drilling this well, and they drilled into an underground mine. Did you ever hear about this?
I did not.
So I got to send you I didn't know about it until a month ago. I watched a YouTube video on it. The craziest shit. So they drilled this well, and obviously
they're in the shelf. So they're
So they're out in the water on the barge, and there's an underground mine, and they drill this hole, and essentially they puncture the mine with this, and all the water starts draining into the mine, and it creates this giant whirlpool, and it starts sucking in all these barges and ships.
Wow.
And it's insane. Never heard about it until I watched a YouTube video on it the other day. So we're going to put a link to it in the show. Yeah, because it's extremely interesting.
Send that across.
I've never had the opportunity to talk about it on the show, but there we go. There's my crossover between mining and oil and gas.
So everybody thinks that mining is a dying industry, and I think for so long it has been. But I'm asking the question because I don't necessarily know, but I would presume with everybody wanting to go to electric vehicles and with new battery technology, lithium is in high demand. Yeah. You have to mine that somehow.
Very true.
Right. So isn't the lithium side of the business just absolutely booming at this point?
It's definitely booming, but the life cycle of the mines, I mean, you've got a 25, 30-year life cycle for these mines, especially looking into the South America, copper seams, gold mines, things like that, is that there's definitely a focus on lithium right now, but the coal industries, the hard rock industries, some of those precious metal industries, especially around tin, they're not going away anytime soon. So, I mean, the runway over the next 20 to 25 years is, especially, and you're seeing it with all the major OEMs getting involved in the autonomous haulage systems, things like that. Without, and that was probably the segue, is without that kind of technology adoption, the optimizing of those solutions, I think that's where the next biggest opportunity is for the mining game. I don't think it's slowing down. I think what they're trying to do is optimize that recovery strategy so you don't have to have so many people in the field. You can use those people to be maintaining a much higher level of equipment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the mining industry looking towards, or maybe are they under pressure, maybe the same ESG pressures that maybe oil and gas is under, to become more efficient, to become cleaner in some way?
Of course.
Using new technology, safer.
Of course. Okay. And as a watch this space, definitely on the Komatsu AHS system that they've put out. So got to collaborate with them during my time there on their AHS system, and everything from cabless trucks. I mean, a truck cab for a hauler, that's $500,000, right? So cut that off, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of money for technology. So any optimization that you can do for change out, like you said, benchmark hours, reducing that carbon footprint of the operation. So we did a ton of work in Australia around continuous haulage systems. So bucket wheels, things like that was the preliminary for it. But now that they've gone to these large crushing conveying systems, that's where the future of mining is going, away from the truck and shovel operations. So seeing a huge demand there for more of those continuous mining operations.
Do they have any I'm going on a tangent here. I'm just curious about mining now. Do they have any you got the Roombas, they clean your house. Do they have any Roombas for big trucks where you can just go and it just starts mining? I can just imagine you can have this mesh network.
Start automating the mining process.
These big cat tractors or something.
So they do drills.
Really?
Autonomous drilling. Yeah. 100%. You lay your drill pattern, put your rod stack in, and it goes to town.
Yeah, we need a mining podcast. We need to talk about that some more. So coming back to oil and gas.
Welcome to the mining podcast, guys.